So, Cliff, of course, we are just days away from the election. There's a lot of other things that are going on in the news to a certain extent that are all sort of, I don't know, touch on some of the major themes of this election a little bit sideways. And I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more of this type of stuff, regardless of whether or not Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, whichever one of them ends up winning. But particularly if Donald Trump ends up losing this election, hope springs eternal, that I think we're going to see, an increase. And I think we already have seen, frankly, an increase in this type of stuff, not all like this this ambush by this, obviously deranged guy in Iowa of two police officers. But this guy fits the profile of at least that which is, like, I guess, getting more, I don't know, oxygen in our society or more opportunity in our society?
Yeah, look, it's not to say, Sam, that this is the first time we've seen something like this. We've got, a guy who was connected to the Don Young representative from Alaska, as well as the National Rifle Association, who had a plan to ambush a number of police officers named Schaefer Cox, a domestic terrorist who is now in prison for about 25 years. We had that case in Las Vegas, you may remember, from a year or two ago, where that couple who were at the Bundy Ranch walked up and ambushed police officers, shot them, and murdered them. It's not to say this hasn't happened before, but all these sort of these right-wing cultural movements reinforce each other, and Donald Trump has brought them all together in a very open fashion, in the manner in which nobody has in recent years, in a long time, frankly, in this country. And, a lot of different forces have made this acceptable. Donald Trump is not somebody who cares about social or societal norms. He's proven that again and again in his business dealings in the past and other ways. So not a shock that he'd be the one to lead the charge on this. But look, they all deserve blame for this. It was after a Republican debate and a period of time when you had people like Carly Fiorina talking about babies being aborted after they were born, and baby parts, that a guy shows up at a Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs and shoots people mumbling about baby parts. I mean, they're unhinged members of society. We've done everything we can to make it as easy for them as possible to get their hands on dangerous firearms. And then we have people out there who are lighting that match. And, I mean, I don't know at what point it becomes inciting riot. I don't know. I mean, that's sort of the phrase, whereas Donald Trump has almost literally said, punch him in the face. Or, he's literally told his people to do violent things. You've got the Ku Klux Klan endorsing him. You have David Duke, a longtime Klansman, standing up, who's got 5% of support now in polls. So he's able to join a debate for Louisiana governor, and spent a lot of the night talking about, well, not all the Jews are bad, but most of them who run the media and the country are doing this and that and the other thing. I mean, they've opened this Pandora's box, and but I think it's also shown how vulnerable our democracy is in the years after World War II. Go ahead.
Let me disaggregate some of this because there's so much of this going on, and I do think it's all sort of basically on a spectrum. But let's try and stay in one part of the spectrum, and then we'll move into the other, because you brought up David Duke, who in this week, like you say, in a debate. Seemed to have really not much hesitation talking about why he was referring to CNN Jews and, big governing international cabals. But, earlier in the week, maybe it was the end of last week, Curt Schilling, the pitcher for the Diamondbacks and the Phillies and the Red Sox, who's now looking to maybe run for Senate in Massachusetts, got on CNN and basically said to Jake Tapper, "You're a Jew. Explain to me why Jews are voting for Democrats," which is just, like, this is, it just shows, like, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the people listening to us didn't even hear about that. Like, these are stories that would have been...
sort of openly identify people by their ethnic origin or that kind of thing, and not necessarily in a complimentary way, but a reminder that we're all different.
The point being, like, these are stories that would have been huge news a year or two ago, but we have moved like into this area where, like you say, the norms have been blown out, not just in terms of that, but like you say, in terms of our democracy. I mean, we now have three Republican senators who are saying they will, under no circumstances, right, under no circumstances, confirm a Supreme Court justice. We're one short, incidentally, folks, a Supreme Court justice nominated by Hillary Clinton. We have one Republican senator, and let's name these, McCain, Burr, and the guy that McCain said was a wacko bird, Ted Cruz, are the ones who are basically saying we're not going to fulfill our obligation to put a Supreme Court justice on the court.
Right.
And then you got Ron Johnson, who is channeling his inner Trump out in Wisconsin, saying that he's already talking about impeachment of a president who hasn't even been elected yet. I mean,
right. He's not the only one, by the way, too. John Cornyn came out and said, well, maybe we shouldn't impeach, but certainly we can build up more evidence. I mean, like a number of House members have also brought up the same thing.
They're not attacking. This is not politics. This is attacking institutions of our system.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows. I mean, the way to deal with these types of characters, frankly, that have dragged our political system to the right, into the gutter, has been to expose them for who they are. When Joseph McCarthy stood up and behaved the way he did, he was exposed for who he was. His own party denounced him. But we're in a different place now. That's historical memory is all gone, and of authoritarian movements in the mid-20th century, and we've allowed ourselves to get to a point where, we can tell the story a lot about these forces, but the story can't be told without the unbelievably miserable job that the political media has done, to a point of where I didn't think they could sink as low as they've sunk this election. But they have spent studies just coming out. They've spent so much more time on Hillary Clinton's emails than they have on her policy proposals. A grand total of 32 minutes, by the way, in network news on policy proposals. So nobody's heard about what she may want to do for them. They've just heard about these emails. I mean, as if that is something important to our democracy. And the number of things wrong with Donald Trump have received at most, equal time to that. I mean, it's utterly incredible. It's like you're watching the demise of the Roman Empire in front of you. And
yeah, I mean,
I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but that's the way watching this spectacle, of where nobody seems to want to step out of their pre-assigned role and say this is insane. This is not the way a democracy runs. It's not the way it's supposed to. This is, we're in a situation now where we're giving open and free pass to white supremacists, who are now saying, by the way, they're going to come out and try to intimidate voters on Election Day. We've got voter suppression of African Americans. We've got admitted emails that have come out in places like North Carolina. I mean, we're off the rails right now. And I don't know.
No,
even Hillary, go ahead.
Well, all right, we're going to take a break here. And I just wanted to add, though, the Department of Justice this week basically singled out North Carolina. I've talked to Greg Palast earlier in this program about the Republican suppression of votes and disenfranchisement. The DOJ has stepped in and singled out a couple of counties in North Carolina which have disenfranchised black people by their caging technique, which is illegal. It is illegal, and they're doing it. And all right, we got to take a break. When we come back, let's talk more about this, because there is a real, I do have a sense, particularly with the Comey thing this week, that there is our whole system in many respects is under assault. We got to take a quick break. Sam Seder, Ring of Fire Radio. We're talking to the great Cliff Schecter. We'll be right back.